Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ice Cold Takes podcast. I'm your host, Joey DeMeglio, and after losing Adam Fox and Filipino to injuries, the Rangers blew a 3-0 lead on Saturday against the Wild in a shootout loss before bouncing back with the win Tuesday night at home against the Red Wings. This week, I'm joined by senior writer for NHL.com, Dan Rosen. He's here to give his overall thoughts on the Rangers and Peter Laviolette this season. Thanks so much for joining me, Dan. How are you?
I'm good, Joey. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. I mean, the Rangers. I went to the game last week and I saw the knee on knee with Adam Fox, so that was a bit of a disappointment seeing him go out. And hopefully he's not out for the rest of the year. Hedl too with an injury, and Shesterkin kind of got banged up, but it looks like he's getting back in there. Um, Before I get into the question, like, what did you think of that hit, like the Aho, the Fox knee to knee thing?
I don't even think it was knee to knee. I thought it was more leg to leg, to be
Yeah,
honest with you. I, I didn't think much of it, to be honest with you. I think it was just kind of a hockey play and a collision. I don't necessarily, Sebastian Aho doesn't, have a reputation for being a player who would stick his leg out to trip or knee on knee or anything, anybody. I think it was a play that, clearly has gone, went bad. Fox tried to, stick with it. He played another shift after that. And then he went out. Now we know he's on LTIR. I don't know what the injury is other than what they've told us, which is lower body injury. Uh, Obviously, he has to be out until at least, I think, November 29th, based on the rule. When you go on LTIR, 10 days, 10 games and 24 days. Peter Laviolette was asked about the length and whatever it might be, if this is like a season thing or what and he said it's not that, but he really didn't want to elaborate too much. So, but the hit itself, honestly, I didn't think that there was. I really didn't think there was much to it.
yeah. I thought it was accidental that kind of just happened. I don't think
Yeah,
Aho like kind of just did that on purpose. He doesn't strike me as that kind of player. Rupp was talking about it. It could have been avoided. I kind of agree with that. I think it could have been avoided, but I don't think it was like a clear, intentional, clear as day, dirty suspend the guy for the season. I didn't think it was anything like that. And
no,
and it need
there's
it was more of a leg to leg. It was
yeah,
low because like Fox's leg kind of it went at a really steep angle.
yeah. I mean, I could it have been avoided? Maybe. I mean, but it game. So it does, things happen. It's a quick game, fast. Obviously, I mean, I don't have to go into all those details of how
Yeah.
quick the game is and all that. I think it's just something that happened on the ice. Maybe could it have been avoided? Sure, but I don't necessarily would. I wouldn't say. I wouldn't. I wouldn't take it anywhere near that.
And now, speaking of the game, this has been something you've covered for quite a long time. I remember growing up, I always used to read your articles too on NHL.com. But I always ask this question to my guests: is how did you get into the journalism field and work for NHL.com? Was hockey always a sport that you wanted to cover, or was it just sports in general that you started with?
So it was sports in general. I always was, growing up, a big hockey fan. I grew up in northern New Jersey. I still live in northern New Jersey. I actually grew up a Devils fan. In the time when I could be a fan, I was a Devils fan. Um, and it was, I went to school, went to college at the University of Arizona. And I majored in journalism and I started working at the student newspaper there, the Arizona Daily Wildcat. Started as a sophomore and continued on through the end of my time there, when I finished up as a senior. And I was able to cover all kinds of sports, from like club sports, like club rugby and club lacrosse, and the Ice Cats, which is our club, which is the University of Arizona's club hockey team, to men's basketball and the NCAA tournament, to baseball, softball. I was the sports editor. Football was huge. I covered that. So really got into it. Was a student, but was working with pros at these events. And for the student newspaper, but working in press conferences with the professionals out there. And then I stayed out there for a little while after graduating, and I got a job back home at a paper called the Herald News in North Jersey,
Mhm.
covering high school sports. And the Herald News at the time merged with the Bergen Record. Be honest, my first day in the Bergen Records newsroom was September 10th, 2001. Obviously, the world changed a day later. So I but I was covering high school sports at the time and started to get into hockey a little bit in 2003. And it's really um, caught a break, essentially, if you will. My sports editor at the time needed somebody else to help out our Devils beat writer in the playoffs. Our Devils beat writer was a guy named Tom Galiti, who I currently work with at NHL.com now. He was the main beat guy, and one of the best beat writers I've ever been around covering a team was Tom. Um, and so I started covering them a little bit in the playoffs with the series in Boston, and the Devils kept winning, and I kept covering them. They liked what I was doing. They went on to win the Stanley Cup that year, and I was able to cover all 4 rounds and met the people that hired me at the NHL on that run. And I didn't get hired at the NHL until 4 years later, but it was really where I started my passion for covering hockey, for writing about hockey, for reporting on the NHL. I knew I wanted to be in pro sports. I was high school sports at the time. I was 25 years old, and I wanted to be in pro sports. And I figured out this wasn't just where I caught my break. This is where my passion lied. It was awesome to do. The people were amazing. Being in the arenas was and remains a privilege every time I'm in there. And then I continued on covering high school sports, did a little bit of hockey in 03, 04. Obviously nothing in 04, 05 as we had the lockout, came out of the lockout, did some more Devils, Rangers, but nothing on a full-time basis, but got an interview at the NHL with NHL.com in 06, did not get the job, was told to hang with them, and then a year later got another one and got the job at the NHL in 2007. And long story short, I've been here ever since, and it's been an ever-changing world of technology and advancements and
Mm-hmm.
how we cover the game, how we see the game, what we use to cover the game, the interactions with people, the mediums that we focus on, podcasts being an example of that. But I've been here since 2007, and it's 2023 now. This is my 16th year. I'm in my 17th season covering this league, this awesome league, and this awesome game for NHL.com. So it's been an amazing journey, and honestly, I don't see myself going anywhere else anytime soon.
The journalism field is crazy competitive. It's all I've heard about being a journalism student myself. And every time I talk to people and they have each story that they tell is unique. But I also noticed that a lot of people come from New Jersey. Like I'm from New Jersey. Donnie LaGreca's from New Jersey. Emily Kaplan's from New Jersey. You're from New Jersey. I don't know. It just seems like a common theme that some of the top journalists in
Well,
hockey are from the New Jersey, New York area.
I'd like to think that's because we're smart and we know our sports in the New Jersey area. And
Yeah.
listen, I mean, we're inundated with pro sports in the New York, New Jersey area, right? So if you have a passion for it, there are opportunities, right? There are opportunities to work within a sports field. My nephew right now, also from New Jersey, he's a student. He's a sophomore at the University of Rhode Island. He just declared his major, sports media and communications. Right? I mean, he wants to work in sports too. It's just, I mean, it's a phenomenal field to work in. But you're right. What you said at the top is very important. It's very competitive. Because we're not alone in the people that want to work in the sports field. A lot of people do. I have friends of mine that look at it and they put it in air quotes, like, "Oh yeah, you're working," and I'm like, "No, I am working. I just love what I do, and I'm working in sports, and I have I pursued it, and I was dogged in my determination for it, and I remain that way. If you lose it, forget it. You're not going to be in it for that long because there is such a competitive nature to the field itself of people that want to work in it. And the thing about it that makes it special and makes it hard and makes it competitive is we're not doing it for the money. The money, you know what I mean? Like, because if you're in this for the money, you're in the wrong field,
Yeah.
okay? But you can make money, you can have a living. I can attest to that. I'm an example of that. Like, you can make a living. I'm married, family of 4, living in suburban, New Jersey. I live in Bergen County. So you can do it, but you're not going to become rich doing it. And that's actually what makes it harder, because it's not a group of people that are, the people who are involved in it are not the people looking to make the quick buck. They're the people that are dogged at their determination to want to make a career, and that's what makes it hard.
Yeah, but you brought that. I thought it was funny, the air quotes thing from your friends
Yeah,
about the work. In I go to St. Bonaventure, and a lot of the textbooks we read, they mention like sports journalism is the toy department of sports. Like
yeah,
that's how it used to be known. But I always look at it as like, well, if you any job you go to, if you enjoy it, it's not going to feel like work. Like, yeah, it's a
right.
job, but it doesn't feel like work. You know what I mean? So like I treat it the same way with sports journalism too, and it's
Well,
just so cool to be able to speak to the players, the coaches, and stuff like that. Watch the games, go there in person because it's way different to go to a game and watch it at the arena than it is to watch it on TV. You notice so much more, like the reaction from the players on the bench, the reaction from the coaches. Like you see a little bit more than what you would on like normal television.
yeah, you got to get. He's a basketball guy, not a hockey guy, but you got to get the king of all basketball media, Adrian Wojnarowski, on this podcast. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've had him before, but he's a Bonnie. He's from St.
yeah,
Bonaventure too.
that's right.
I
That's
actually
right.
worked with him at the Bergen Record. I was there at the time he was writing his book on the Miracle of Saint Anthony. He was a columnist, and
Yeah.
he helped me out greatly, actually. And and that's the other thing about this business is there are people out there who are who are fine, but there are people out there who are great and are willing to help, and it's a special fraternity, if you will.
And New York media, it's always like a funny thing. Like I've watched the Rangers for over 10 years, like maybe closer to 15 now. I was a kid when I started watching, but the seeing like the press conferences with John Tortorella and Larry Brooks, I always go back and look at them because they're so funny and stuff.
Mhm.
But now seeing it today with like how Laviolette is handling the media conferences, and he's like amazed by how specific the questions that you guys ask. It's like, all right, do I have to bring a whiteboard out? I think that was what he said in one of his
That's
first.
what he said. Yeah, he was
Yeah,
joking around. He was joking around about it. We were asking him. It was in the preseason, and we were asking him about his systems and to sort of explain a little bit the style and the way he wanted to play. And he joked about like, do most people come up here when they come to the Rangers and bring out a whiteboard and pretty much give you all the X's and O's and everything that they do? And we were laughing about it, but like, yeah, it's you got to be. Listen, I mean, you got to be pointed in your questions. You got to you
yeah.
got to you got to know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the New York fans, they want the answers too. And this speaking of systems, Laviolette brought the 1-3-1 neutral zone trap, which I didn't expect to see that. I thought we were going to see more of that. They advertised the left wing lock in the
Right.
offensive zone, but what are your thoughts on like the Rangers using the neutral zone trap? I know Laviolette has said that that's an area the Rangers still need to improve on, getting that tighter to prevent break-ins.
Well, I think it's work. I mean, when they play within their structure, they're very good, and they've done that for most of their games this season. Is play well within their structure. Occasionally, it'll go a little awry. And talking to Mika Zibanejad about it a couple of games ago, he basically was saying like we've got the basics of it now, and that's key. And it was a lot to learn in training camp of how they wanted them to play, because the Rangers were more of a free flowing team under Gerard Gallant in their 2 seasons, and they were not a team that had any type of trapping system within the neutral zone. They did not play any man on man defense in the defending zone. Um, and now they are a trapping type team with the 1-3-1 where they can get it set up in the neutral zone. And they are more of a man on man, hybrid man on man, but they're more of a man on man team in the defensive zone. So it's been a lot of changes. But when they are operating it and it looks good, it's really hard. And how do you know? It's very obvious. When the opposing defenseman has the puck and he's standing either behind his goalie or in front of the goalie, and he's standing there waiting, and the fans at the Garden start booing, then the Rangers are set up, and it's pretty tight because there's nowhere to go. And Laviolette's teams have been doing this for a long time, and there's a reason why he's been a successful coach for a long time. It works. It works
Mhm.
when you buy in, and the Rangers right now are a team that's bought in and bought in all the way. They were embarrassed by what happened to them last season. I think there was definitely a sense of embarrassment. There was definitely a sense of missed opportunity. Like a lot of those guys on this team right now will tell you, I will never be on a team as talented as that one last season.
Yeah.
And when you think about the talent, you thinking about what they have now, plus Patrick Kane, plus Vladimir Tarasenko. I mean, like you're talking about loads of talent. Um, they're not as say talented now, but they are a better team now because they're playing within more of a structure, and that structure is yielding results. And they also have world class goaltending, which helps when you have breakdowns. And breakdowns are going to happen, but their world class goaltending has been really good. And even Jonathan Quick. I mean, Jonathan Quick has been very good as well in his time in net. And obviously the last couple of games because of Igor Shesterkin being injured a little bit. But it's been a good look so far. It's been a really good start for this team, and if they can continue on the path they're playing with, the structure they're playing with, I think really good things are ahead of them.
Yeah, so Laviolette brought defensive changes with him, and the Rangers have made significant improvements in the defensive zone this year. I don't know if the same can be said on the offensive side of the puck, like at even strength. That maybe
Mm-hmm.
through the first up until the after that Oilers win on that road trip, I thought the Rangers kind of reverted back to how they played at even strength last season, which is rely on the power play, don't get too much opportunities, spend too much time. It's crazy how what a couple weeks can do because a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, the Rangers were 90th percentile on the new NHL Edge statistics in
Yeah.
offensive zone time. That was 42.9%. Now today, they're below 50th percentile. That's 40.5%. And I know you wrote about it in the Super 16. The Rangers were ranked fourth, and the Rangers, if they generate more 5-on-5 offense, do you think they could beat a team like Boston or even Vegas for that matter?
Well, here's the thing. There's a couple of things that you're 100% right. Yeah, the 5-on-5 offense was lacking. They do have 7 5-on-5 goals in their last 2 games.
Yeah.
So that's good. One of them was the Minnesota game where it was too freewheeling and too loose. The other one was the Detroit game where up until the third period when the Red Wings started to mount a little bit of a comeback. And I think the Rangers got too loose because they were up 5-0. They were tight. They were good 5-on-5. They were pressuring. They had a shot mentality, a go to the net mentality, a play north mentality. And that's the mentality they need and need to play more with. But yes, they have been reliant on their power play, which has been scorching hot all year and is really good power play. So on one hand, you're saying to yourself, well, you can't rely on a power play to continue on a pace it's at right now, right? Because I mean, honestly, they're not as good as the Oilers were last year on the power play, and even they weren't 34% on the power play. They were 32.6% last season. That's the best in the history of the National Hockey League. So the Rangers are not going to be there. I would expect their power play to drop about 10% from where it's at right now. So that's taking goals off the board from the power play, which you need to get picked up by your 5-on-5. I think they are doing that. However, it also needs to be said that power play goals count. And it doesn't matter how you score them, they count, and it makes a difference. So when you're talking about a small sample size, you'll take it. When you extrapolate it out to a larger sample size, you do get call into question a little bit. Are they going to be able to generate more at 5-on-5? And I think we are now starting to see them do that. Can they do that on a consistent basis? That remains to be seen because I'm only talking about 2 games, which obviously is a small sample size.
So when on the offensive side, like in the offensive zone, should the Rangers be putting more of an emphasis to get more chances and spend more time there? Should they put more of an emphasis on their forecheck or using that neutral zone trap to force to force turnovers from the other team and then transition? What is like the
Well,
better? I'm sure they use
the
both,
forecheck,
but like
yeah,
the better option there.
it's the forecheck because if you are in the neutral zone trap, it means you have to set it up and the other team has possession. And it's controlled possession at the time that you're set in your neutral zone. If they're in that 1-3-1, that means the other team has the puck and they have to generate and they have to get it back. If they're creating havoc off of their forecheck, it means the other team does not have the puck or can't control the puck in the defensive zone, and it could lead to turnovers and create plays off of broken plays. So it's always going to be the forecheck. I think that you want to put an emphasis on and a stress that to generate more, to be aggressive on the forecheck, to push that pace up the ice, to force teams into making the mistakes. when you're in that neutral zone trap, it'll force team to make a mistake, but it'll force them to make a controlled mistake, not an uncontrolled mistake, which is what a forecheck really does.
Hmm. Yeah, and then another thing too that I've noticed with Laviolette is Gallant used to switch the lines, put him in a blender last year when offense wasn't working, even strength offense. This year, it's more of here are my lines. This is what we're going with, no matter what. If it works, if it works. If it doesn't, we'll try again in the next game. But then the Rangers made one change last night. With the injury to Hedel, Benito moved up to the third line center position, and Blake Wheeler and Capo Caco switched spots. So, what did you think of those line changes last night and how
Yeah.
those worked at even strength?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is it's injury driven, right? So you have to move Trocheck off the third line and put him on the second line. When you do that, you have to move. It's a domino effect, right? So part of it is injury driven. The I don't think Laviolette ever said these are my lines and this is the way it's going to be. He said these are my lines. This is the way it's going to be for now. I'm going to let them. I'm going to let them grow
Yeah,
together. I'm going to
yeah,
let I'm going to see how it works, and it was working. So why would you change it, right? I mean,
exactly.
results are results. You go by the positive results. You don't want to change from that. So that was one really good thing. I think it was his intention though to allow lines to grow together, to stick with it for a while. Wins help, but I think it was his intention to have it happen, even if they weren't winning as much as they've won so far earlier this season. The move to swap Kako for Wheeler. Listen, I mean, Capo Caco is not producing, right? I mean, he's not doing much. And even on the third line role that he played against the Red Wings, he didn't do that much. In that he had a shot on goal early in the game and really was invisible from then on. And it's on him. Like it's incumbent on him to push. Look at what Alexis Lafreniere is doing right now. Different lines, completely different lines. When you're playing with Panarin and Hedel or Panarin and Trocheck versus when you're playing with Kreider and Zibanejad, it's completely different. Kreider and Zibanejad need a shooter, need a guy that's going to shoot the puck because Kreider obviously generates off of that, and even Mika will generate off of that too. Kako's not necessarily a shooter. Lafreniere on the line he's on especially when it's Hedel, they need a guy to drive and create below the goal line and win puck battles and get to the net, and that's what he's really excelling at that. And so, because he's not an east-west guy, whereas especially Hedel and Panarin are more east-west, right? So they need a net drive guy. Kako's got to be able to do more. Wheeler is going to get that opportunity because he's Blake Wheeler, and it's what he's done in his career, and it's the easy move. Was he great in that role? No, he wasn't, but he's generating a little bit. He's getting some opportunities. But no, was he great in that role? Absolutely not. I think in a perfect world, you have Kako in a top six role, and you have Blake Wheeler in a third line role. But if Kako is not going to produce in that role, you're going to make the change.
Yeah, I think Kako definitely knows it too, that, he's gotta hold himself accountable. He hasn't looked as good as he looked in preseason, because in preseason, he was shooting, he was doing all the stuff in the corners that he usually does, throwing penalties, doing everything he could, but it's kinda underwhelming so far to start the
Yeah.
year. But I think Laviolette made it clear it wasn't like a work ethic thing, it was more of a
No,
production.
it's a production thing, and it's how his game is trending type of
Yeah.
thing. And he's not doing the things that you were just saying. He's not doing nearly enough of the things you were just talking about. And if he's not doing enough of that, then his game's going to be off.
Yeah, and another thing on the 5-on-5 offense, last thing before we transition is the Mika Zibanejad gets a lot of his offense. He gets a lot of it from the power play, specifically that one timer. Maybe he hasn't scored on that one timer too much this year, but a lot of fans are skeptical of like how much he's able to produce. Like, how can he get it going at 5v5 is my question. What do you think he needs to
Well,
do?
it's possession, it's drive the net, it's getting another guy to shoot the puck so he can play off of a shot on occasion. And Kako's not that guy right now shooting it. It's not going to be Kreider either shooting the puck. There's some of that. It's funny, like I get the fan perspective on this, and you see numbers, and you see a guy not producing at the rate he's producing, or you see a guy, living off of the power play. I mean, there's a few guys on this team that I would not worry about one bit. Mika Zibanejad's one. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, Mika Zibanejad is. I'll tell you much. I'll tell you this much. If we're talking about Mika Zibanejad's lack of 5-on-5 production, 12 games into the season where the Rangers have won 9 of them, I think the New York Rangers are in a pretty good spot.
Okay, that's what we would call the ice cold take of the day for you right there. That's a great way to transition into the next segment. So I'm assuming that's a great take. So I'll read the definition for you and for the people listening at home or watching on YouTube. An ice cold take is a noun. It's an accurate statement backed by facts and observation that is solid in nature, similar to a block of ice, i.e., spot on claim. So one more time, you're saying if you're worried about Zibanejad's lack of production at 5v5 this point in the season, 12 games in, the Rangers are in a good spot, right?
Yeah, they're in a great spot because they've won 9 games already, and they're doing it. Okay, you want to live on their power play, that's fine. They've done it a lot on the power play, but again, like I said before, power play goals count. Okay, and
Yeah.
they count as the same as an even strength goal, so it's no different. And again, I mean, Mika Zibanejad is the player that I'm probably least, other than Shesterkin, maybe he's the one I'd be least concerned about in terms of he's going to bring it every single night, every single shift. His 5-on-5 production will turn. He'll start to score more. History says he will. His game, his style of play says he will. And again, if we're talking about that, then I think the Rangers are 9-2-1. Then I think the Rangers are in a pretty good spot right now
Yeah.
because there's a lot of teams who are talking about a lot of problems and they're not nearly as good. They're way bigger problems and they're in a way worse situation.
Mm-hmm. And past 3 or 4 full seasons for Zibanejad, he's ended with like 30 or 40 goals. So I
Yeah.
always, like you said, the history says that he's going to solve it. I kind of just think he needs like one 5-on-5 goal to kind of turn things around, or
Yeah.
maybe just one of those one-timers to go in because it looks like he's missing the net a little bit or misfiring on some of those that he usually nails. But I don't put too much emphasis in that. I like that Panarin is really producing, stepping up this year. 12 points in 12 games. Like I was not expecting that, especially after the performance last year in the playoffs and fans calling for his head, trade him. I was never on board with that talk.
Well, I mean, listen, Panarin still has to prove it in the playoffs.
Yeah,
He does.
absolutely.
Okay. He has to play better than he did in the playoffs last year. But there's a system in place now for him. There's a structure in place now for him. And Laviolette was talking about it last night after the Red Wings game. That what we're seeing from Panarin, and I brought it up to him as well. I said, "Are you seeing a guy that instead of waiting for the puck to come to him so he can make a play, is attacking with the puck to make that play?" And that's exactly what he's doing. He is playing his game within the structure and his game within the style that Laviolette wants him to play. So there's still a little bit of that east-west element to it. There's obviously a lot of creativity in his game, but he's driving. He's a driving force. And that is when Artemi Panarin has always been at his best. He was not doing that in the playoffs last year. He was very much on the perimeter. He was very much just a passive player, if you will, in the
Hmm.
playoffs last year. But there's a system and a structure in place that he's playing in right now that works. And when he plays this way, it works even better because he's got the best skill on the team. And on many nights, he's got the best skill in the game. And so when that happens and he can marry it all together, you're going to see the Panarin you've seen so far with points, in 12 straight games to start the season. And only one player, 20 points in those 12 games, and only one player in Rangers history has had a longer point streak to start a season. That was Rod Gilbert with 14. I think that was about, well, I mean, it was definitely before I was born. It was like 1970 or something. I was born in 78.
Yeah.
So
He's in good
71.
company.
Yeah.
The Rangers have been around for like almost 100 years, and
Yeah.
it's only those two that have that amount of points to start a season. Panarin's
Yeah,
in
he's
good
all right.
company. Yeah, he's all right. He's just all right. Last thing before we wrap it up, other areas of improvement for the Rangers, in your opinion? I mean, for me too. Like I noticed penalties is they're taking too many of them. Has Laviolette sort of talked about that being too aggressive, taking too many penalties, and that creating momentum for the other team in like press conferences as he talked about that?
I mean, they had 6 against the Red Wings the other night. I don't think it's been a huge problem, but it definitely rears its head every once in a while. And the PK, when it's aggressive as it was against Detroit, can be really good. And they were 6 for 6 and killing off the 5-on-3 as well, that the Red Wings had. So that was good. But penalties, yes. Question about it. But I'll be honest with you right now. I mean, this team just went out and beat a pretty good Detroit Red Wings team, and they did it without Philip Hedl, Adam Fox, or Igor Shesterkin in the lineup. That's pretty good. I know we in the media and fans as well, we always like to nitpick and find things, and there are things to find, like the third period of the game against Detroit, where they kind of just fell apart. What happened there? How does it happen that you kill a 5-on-3, then you finish it off with a 5-on-4, and then you give up a goal? That's a little weird. Yeah. Usually you gain momentum off of that. You don't give it up after that. So there's certain things, games within the game, but I would think that this season I think there's 2 games of the 12 the Rangers have played that they don't like, and that was the Nashville game before they went on the road trip, and that was the game in Minnesota, which was, as Laviolette has called, the sneaky road trip game, because they went on that 5-game Western road trip, came home for 1, and then bang, out to Minnesota. They didn't like that game either, but they got a point out of it. And they obviously got nothing out of the Nashville game at home before leaving on the road trip. But those are the only 2 games I look at right now, and I say, those are the ones. And if you're talking about 10, 9, if you will, maybe the Columbus game you can kind of have a hit or miss on, but 9 of your 12 games have been good to solid to great. I think you're feeling pretty good.
That's pretty good for within the first 15, less than 15 games of the season. That's pretty good. Anything else the Rangers could possibly improve on aside from 5-on-5? What else sticks out to you?
Some of the turnovers, they do. There are some turnovers I see, from some of the defensemen. It's not a huge problem, but you want to limit those, obviously. Other than that, I mean, I can't really think. Individually, you just want to get more out of Kakko. You really do. You want to get, like we talked about, Zibanejad, obviously, but you got to get more out of Kakko. He's got to be a huge part of this team, and he's not right now, because if he is, and if he becomes one, they're that much better, and you need it. They're going to need it. The Devils aren't going anywhere. The Carolina Hurricanes aren't going anywhere. You look at the other division, on the other side, in the Atlantic, Boston's really good. Toronto's got a lot of firepower. Tampa's still there. Detroit's coming. Ottawa's coming, right? I mean, Florida's there. I mean, there's a lot of teams. It's pretty loaded Eastern Conference right now, I think, and the Rangers are going to need it. And they're going to need Kakko to give them something this season.
Yeah, definitely need him to start producing. Well, Dan, I appreciate you coming on the show, taking the time out of your day to come on here. I know how busy you guys are. Really appreciate you doing that.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem.